Good morning and welcome to RedisConf 2021, the annual gathering of Redis lovers. It's a great pleasure to have you here, Redis developers, experts, and users, as well as customers and partners of Redis Labs. A lot has happened since our last conference. The events of this past year have reshaped our world. It pushed companies to accelerate digital transformation of their customers' journey, as well as the supply chain of their own internal operations by 3 to 4 years. And the share of digital products in their portfolios has accelerated by a shocking 7 years. Businesses all around are more digital today compared to where they were only 12 months ago. They need to build, deploy, and run real-time services in order to stay ahead of the curve. A real-time data layer is a critical enabler in building those real-time experiences. RedisConf this year is going to be all about rediscovering real-time data, real-time apps, and real-time experiences that power a real-time world. Before we dig in, this year we celebrate the 12th anniversary of open source Redis and the 10th anniversary of Redis Labs. This is also 1 year since the leadership of open source Redis was transitioned from its creator, Salvatore Sanfilippo, to a core team of developers from Redis Labs, AWS, and Alibaba, which operates in accordance with the new governance model we created. This team and the governance model reconfirm our commitment to the open source and to our roots. In February, we released Redis 6.2, a community version that added many minor capabilities that were requested over the years and required a lot of work that included 321 commits by 62 contributors, 19 new commands and deprecating 8 commands, 21,000 plus insertions, and 4,000 plus deletions, as well as 210 file changes. This version is expected to be available in our Redis Enterprise cloud service in the coming month. The core team of open source Redis now includes Yossi Gottlieb and Oran Agra from Redis Labs as leaders, Itamar Haber from Redis Labs as a community manager, and then Medlin Olson for AWS and Zhao Zhao from Alibaba as team members. The team plans to increase the release cadence of Redis to 2 major versions per year, so the next version, Redis 7, is planned for Q3 of 2021. We also plan on increasing the number of active contributors to open source Redis, and have already started to see companies like Ericsson and Intel that weren't actively involved in the Redis development in the past, allocating teams now to work exclusively on Redis. Let's dive now into the age of real-time. Developers love Redis for its open source roots, but many still perceive it as an excellent caching system for accelerating other databases because the 10 to 100 millisecond response time of these other databases cannot guarantee a reasonable user experience. This never made sense to us. Why having a slow database with a caching system to support it when you can have a fast database that can respond in less than 1 millisecond under any transaction load? Modern apps need modern data models without losing performance. So we developed Redis to support, beside its original set of data structures, all modern data modeling technologies like JSON, time series, streaming data, and graph data, all complemented by a powerful indexing, query, and search engine. And in each such data model, Redis still provides a significant performance advantage over any other technology available today. We are seeing strong traction for this with Redis developers and with our customers. Redis modules adoption has grown 60% year over year in the last full fiscal year and 120% in the first 2 months of our current fiscal year compared to the same period a year before. By using Redis Bloom, Fiverr, a global marketplace that connects freelancers and businesses for digital services, improve their design and efficiency of their internal content catalog and significantly reduce developer onboarding time. And then, by using Redis Search, Go Mechanic, a leading automotive services company in India, improved customer spare parts display, search, and SEO by more than 4 times. And by using Redis Time Series, SitePro, a utility metering solution provider, is able to offer real-time analytics done both on the edge and in the cloud with data gathered from hundreds of thousands of IoT sensors. These customers and many others using Redis modules are presenting here at RedisConf, and you are welcome to learn more on how to get the best out of our modules at their sessions. Modern enterprise apps must be resilient and durable and are oftentimes globally distributed. We have reinforced Redis to become suitable for enterprise use by enabling as many as you want in-memory replications, adding an instant auto-failover mechanism, and enabling active-active geo-distribution, where you can read and write at a local speed in a database that is globally distributed. Active-active is a big differentiator for companies like Vangal, Mutualink, and Coffee and Bagels, allowing them to run Redis with 5 nines availability and making it possible for them to deliver better business outcomes. Our active-active adoption is on the rise, and we have seen a 118% increase year over year. In today's modern era of digital transformation, cloud plays a major role. We are helping customers of all sizes across all verticals make the journey possible. As a result, Redis Enterprise for Cloud has been named alongside with Snowflake as the only challengers in the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrant for cloud databases. However, Redis was closer than Snowflake to the Leaders Quadrant, where you can find only tech giants like AWS, Microsoft, Google, and Oracle. All cloud providers offer fully managed Redis services based on open source Redis, and Redis Labs offers its Redis Enterprise cloud service on all 3 major clouds. In the past, cloud providers monetized Redis without contributing much to it. But we are encouraged to see the growing interest and involvement of the major cloud providers in contributing to open source Redis, and even more so, partner with the company behind Redis. We appreciate having all 3 major cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and the Google Cloud, as platinum sponsors at RedisConf this year. A year and a half ago, we partnered with the Google Cloud around offering Redis Enterprise as a native service on their platform. In RedisConf last year, we announced a partnership with Azure to offer Redis Enterprise Power tiers on Azure Cache. This service became generally available in early March of this year. Recently, we also became an advanced technology partner of AWS, allowing AWS users to consume Redis Enterprise Cloud with their AWS commits. And I hope to share with you news about more partnerships with cloud providers in the foreseeable future. Shifting gears and driving attention to the world of machine learning and artificial intelligence, things like e-commerce recommendations, fraud detection, inventory management, claim processing, and others need a real-time platform. In the past, we announced Redis AI, which is an inference engine for serving data to ML-powered applications from where the data lives. However, we found that many ML-powered apps already use Redis to store ML features in what is called feature store, which is the bridge between the ML model and the data it uses. We think this is a natural evolution for Redis as the demand for online feature stores and for real-time decision-making engines grows. We now push on multiple fronts towards making Redis the de facto standard in this space, and we will share with you much more about this during these 2 days. Besides this, in this conference, you will rediscover the power of real-time data in more than 60 breakout sessions across 3 tracks. Built with Redis, operate Redis at scale, and industry solutions with Redis. The software developers and architects among you will learn Redis's best practices and will get hands-on with new Redis capabilities, including participating in a hackathon with $100,000 prizes. I also urge you to interact with people around you. The app you are using enables that. Enjoy meeting new people from the Redis ecosystem and trade tips and tricks with them. I am very excited about this conference, and I know you will be too. So without further ado, let's get technical. I would like to invite my friend and co-founder of Redis Labs and the company's CTO, Yiftach Shoolman, to speak about some of the exciting news and announcements of this conference. Yiftach, please.
Thank you, Ofer. My keynote today is about Redis for all your real-time data. Real-time is not just nice to have anymore. It is an expectation. It is what sets a good user experience apart from a great one. Such a great experience happens when your app responds to every operation at the latency of no more than 100 milliseconds, or 0.1 second. Measure from the time you click the button until you get the first byte of the response. Be it browsing, simple browsing, adding new item to your shopping cart, buying shares, doing comprehensive search, or even complex analytic queries. In my keynote today, I would like to show you how you can build, deploy, and run a true real-time application on the top of Redis, and why Redis is the best option when real-time matters. But before diving in, let me first list the 3 main challenges with designing application for real-time era. Number 1, database latency. A rule of thumb of running an application in production says every millisecond spent in the database means 100 times that number of milliseconds felt at the application level. Even a 10 millisecond database response may not be enough for your application because that implies at least 1 second of application latency, which is unacceptable today. The only way to guarantee end-to-end latency of 100 milliseconds is to use a database that processes all type of operation in less than a millisecond. Challenge number 2 is the freedom to build your application with any data model. Microservices architecture has many advantages. You want the freedom and the flexibility where every microservice uses the best data model. Be it a key value for managing your sessions or doing fast lookups, document for managing profiles, stream for processing streams data, graph for managing relations, and time series for IoT and time-driven data. So if you are building a modern application for the real-time world, you need to make sure you have all the supported tools to design, develop, debug, and test your application with this modern data model. And the last challenge is deploying a globally distributed application and running them with little or no latency. In the world of containers, Kubernetes, and hundreds of public cloud regions, zones, and hybrid deployment options, you can practically deploy a fully distributed application anywhere in minutes, as close as possible to where your users are, and provide a true real-time experience. But there is one challenge left. A stateful real-time application requires real-time access to data. How you can provide this access with ultra-low latency if your application is globally deployed? Let's deal with challenge number 1. So many benchmarks have proven that Redis can process any kind of operation, simple or complex, with sub-millisecond response time, even if performing millions of operations simultaneously. With over 10 years of being in the most demanding production environments across the globe, in every vertical, we have been steadily expanding Redis capabilities beyond cache to provide all the essentials ingredient of modern database to meet the needs of Redis users, such as replication with high availability, failover, clustering, data persistence, backup, and built-in security feature. Not to mention advanced Redis Enterprise capabilities that allow you to run Redis with 5 nines availability using active-active technology and Redis on Flash to store terabytes of data at the cost of disk-based database. And let's take a minute to share with you our production history. We are over 9 years in production with over 1.5 million databases created, deploying across more than 500 cloud and on-premises data centers, and experience over 5,000 node failure events and over 200 complete data center outages with no notable data loss. And this is why over 66% of our users are using Redis Enterprise for beyond cache use cases. One area of continued investment is to offer Redis with strong consistency. Last year, we announced a project called Redis Raft, which allows you to run Redis using Raft consensus algorithm, making Redis a proven CP system. Since then, we have made exciting progress. Let me just summarize what we have done so far with Redis Raft. We passed the Jepson test with no unresolved issues. With the support of clustering, you can easily reach to over 100,000 strong consistency transactions per second by adding the right number of shards. As for latency, we plan to provide 2 options for Redis Raft. The first, with asynchronous disk write, you can maintain the sub-millisecond latency of Redis. The second, with synchronous disk write, you can guarantee full durability even if the majority of the cluster node fail, while still maintaining the single-digit millisecond latency of Redis, meaning less than 10 milliseconds. We are now previewing Redis Raft with some of the largest financial services on Earth, making sure it is ready to meet the need of most demanding environment. And today, I am happy to announce that later this year, as part of Redis 7, Redis Raft is going to be GA. Many of you in the audience are here to learn and explore how you can build the fastest application more quickly with Redis. Redis is not just a data structure server anymore. Since the introduction of Redis modules in Redis 4.0, we have been working to transfer Redis into a full-blown modern data model server. With this new reality, you can build fastest application by moving more and more workloads to Redis. And you can even build them quickly. We are constantly improving our development tool, like Redis Insight, and adding new capabilities to the leading Redis client. Let me share with you a bit about these modern Redis data models. Redis Search lets you index query your Redis data. You can also perform full-text search with the speed of an in-memory database. Redis JSON lets you manage JSON and the rich nested document model it provides in Redis. Redis Graph allows you to model and query relation in Redis, turning Redis into a high-performance graph database. Redis Time Series let you monitor IoT devices and analyze time series data. And with Redis Bloom, you can create as close to accurate estimation with minimal memory and CPU usage. We are seeing adoption across all these data models. However, JSON and search definitely stand out. For quite some time, Redis users have been asking us to let them query their JSON data using Redis Search. So today I am happy to announce that the combination of Redis JSON with Redis Search is going to be preview next month. This will allow you to index, query, and search in JSON documents stored in Redis at the Redis speed. To demonstrate how it works, I would like to invite Peter Caillou, Director of PM for Developers Experience, to the virtual stage. Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Yiftach. Before diving into the demo, combining Redis Search and Redis JSON, I would like to touch upon the improved architecture in Redis Search 2.0. Prior to 2.0, you had to use a specific command ft-add to index data into Redis Search, and Redis Search on turn optionally would write that data into Redis. From 2.0 onwards, you can use the default core commands within Redis for manipulating hashes. You can then create, update, and delete those with the regular commands. You then define a schema within Redis Search, and Redis Search will follow all these updates within your database. Effectively, Redis Search 2.0 is a secondary index for your data residing within Redis. There's no need to update any existing create, update, and delete logic. You can simply add Redis Search, define a schema, and start querying. With this change architecture, we can also add other data structures to be able to be supported by Redis Search. We thought about strings because many of you use them for caching purposes. We thought about streams to index all the messages. We thought about time series data because time series, they have labels and sometimes require fuzzy searches. But we also thought about JSON. JSON, as pointed out by Yiftach, is our most popular module. From our community, we learned that many of you effectively were looking for full-text search querying on top of JSON documents. So let's jump into the demo. I'll first look into which modules are loaded within my database. There is search and JSON, as you can see. We look at the keys within our database. We have 5 documents. I will use Redis Insight to look into those keys. Redis Insight is a graphical user interface to help developers to be more productive building applications. So let's look at, for example, at product 2. We can see there's an ID, a SKU, a name, a short description, long description, a price, several categories, a rating, and an image. What we're going to do is to build an index on top of our product catalog so we can search these products. All these products, by the way, are headphones. So let's start with creating the index. My index name will be IDX product. Next thing I need to specify is the data structure on JSON. We also support on hashes. The next thing is we need to tell Redis Search which keys it should index. All the ones that start with a prefix prod. And lastly, we need to define the schema. We will index 2 fields, the name and the long description. And we also give them an alias. Notice also that we use the full JSON path expression, $.name, to specify which field within the document we would like to index. So let's start searching. We're looking for a product that contains base. So let's go ahead. So there we go. We find product 4 effectively having a base within this product name. Let's continue with a fuzzy search. Let's look for wireless within our product catalog. So headphones that have a wireless connection. So there we go. We found 2 matches that contain wireless within the description. Now let's do something more advanced. Let's search again for wireless, but let's do a projection. Let's return just the product name, but also the price. So with this, we effectively can show that we can do full text searches, fuzzy searches, and even projection. There is much more to it. We can also do aggregations and pipelines on top of your dataset. Back to the slides. So the last question you could ask is it fast? So we have some preliminary benchmark data. We used the Yahoo Cloud Serving benchmark for the e-commerce use case to benchmark Redis search. And we compared it to the most popular document databases. And we can see that Redis search is 3 to 37 times faster. Imagine how that will change your user experience for your applications and which cost savings you can do with that performance increase. So when will it be available? Redis Search and Redis JSON will go into private preview next month. Back to you, Yiftach.
Thank you, Peter. Now let's talk about how you can use Redis to deploy real-time application with real-time data. The combination of JSON plus search allows you to build almost any application on the top of Redis and make it run extremely fast, say 50 milliseconds from the time your user request arrives to your application servers until your application responds back, including multiple interactions with Redis. But what about the network overhead? How can you make sure all the work you have done to build a real-time application is not degraded by the network latency? And how can you guarantee that end-to-end latency of your app will not exceed the 100 milliseconds? So let's examine together several deployment options. Option number 1 is to use one central primary Redis instance with multiple read-replica. This can work nicely with read-only workload, but this architecture can result in write bottlenecks, threatening the entire real-time experience of your application. Option 2, deploy your application, use commonly available globally distributed database, and use Redis as a local cache solution at each replica. First, this architecture is extremely expensive and complex, as it requires deploying multiple data stores in each geolocation, building all the connection between them, and running multiple clients at your application server. Second, globally distributed databases like Google Spanner, AWS DynamoDB, and Azure Cosmos DB rely on a consensus protocol to provide some level of consistency, be it strong or eventual consistency. This means that every read or write operations need to run through the majority of replicas across the globe, which again may break the real-time nature of your application. Option number 3 is to use active-active Redis. Active-active Redis lets you deploy a distributed replicated Redis globally, while always permitting the local speed of read and writes. This means the fastest possible local response times. What makes active-active Redis possible are CRDTs, or conflict-free replication data types. This technology means that an active-active deployment doesn't need a consensus protocol, which is great for application developers because they can perform read and writes at the local sub-millisecond speed of Redis without worrying about consistency. Based on years of academic research, CRDTs guarantee that eventually all your write will be converged in a conflict-free manner across all your replica. And today, I am happy to announce that we have extended CRDTs to support the nested data type of Redis. Running Redis JSON plus Redis Search in active-active deployments will be generally available at the beginning of the second half this year. Now let's see how easy it is to deploy a distributed Redis database powered by Redis JSON and Redis Search across all 3 major public clouds, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. For this, I would like to invite Jonathan Salomon, Senior PM for Redis Enterprise Cloud. Jonathan, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Yiftach. So let me walk you through how simple it is indeed to create an active Redis subscription with modules on Redis Cloud. So let's start off by creating a new subscription in our flexible pricing tier. And after enabling active Redis, we can now select the same regions as where our application is running across cloud vendors. So let's go with these default regions for now. And having given the subscription a name, we can now continue and define the sizing requirements for our subscription. So I'm going to add here a database and name it after our application. Set a memory limit of 25 gigabytes. And for each of the regions that we defined in the previous phase, we can here set the throughput requirements. So let's go with these values. And since our application is relying on the combined power of both Redis Search and Redis JSON, I'm going to add these modules in here right now. So now that we've saved these settings, we can continue and review together what we're about to provision. So we see here an active Redis subscription that's going to provision across these regions and these cloud vendors. And here we can see the number of shards and their cost for each of the regions. As this is what we need, let's provision. So this step may take a few minutes. Therefore, I'm going to switch now to another tab where we have a ready-to-go subscription waiting for us. Now, as we can see here, we have a map that's showing us the regions that are part of this active Redis subscription, and it's showing us some of the main metrics. So let's see what happens when we connect our clients and we start loading our application dataset. So hold on 1 second while I go do that. Right. So now as the data is being loaded, we can see that the memory used and the number of keys are rapidly increasing, while the local latency of the participating regions effectively remains below 1 millisecond. So Yiftach, I hope this little walkthrough shows how easy it is to quickly deploy the active technology across multiple regions on Redis Cloud.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now it's about time to see how all the technology we have just described come together and help us to build the most responsive application on the planet. For this, we have built an e-commerce application called Redis Smart that relies 100% on Redis. Deployed and run across multiple clouds using active Redis technology, Redis Smart leverages the combination of JSON and search. To demonstrate the application, I am welcoming Ash Sahu, Director of Product Marketing, to show you how it feels when your e-commerce application executes every operation in real time. Ash, over to you.
Thanks, Yiftach. I'm Ash. I'm going to demo how you can use Redis JSON with Redis Search to build real-time applications with interactive search experiences. So as Yiftach mentioned, we've actually created a fictitious retailer called Redis Mart that sells electronics, appliances, and other items. It's actually a fully functional e-commerce store built entirely on Redis. So I'm going to I'm actually looking to buy a movie to watch with my son. So either I can click on the category or I can go to the search bar and search for movies. In fact, 30% of shoppers use the search bar to find what they're looking for. So the search has to be fast, but also typo resistant. Let's talk a little bit about speed. I'm going to open this console and look at the performance. This page is dynamically constructed using data coming through an API from the server. What I'm trying to do is narrow down my search using this faceted navigation on the left-hand side. I'm going to make it a little bit more reasonably priced. I want a higher rated movie, and I'm going to narrow it down to just movies and TV shows. Well, if you see the number, keep an eye on the number on the right-hand side, you'll see that it's less than 100 milliseconds. This is the time to first byte, which means that complete end-to-end latency. Below 100 milliseconds is actually blazing fast. And you may wonder what's the big deal about 100 milliseconds versus 1 second. In fact, research has shown that if the performance slows down from 100 milliseconds to 400 milliseconds, then it has measurable impact on users. Now, as more and more users and businesses are going online, a faster performance means a better online shopping, a better digital banking, a better telehealth experience, which leads to more usage and more satisfied users. The speed really matters. I'm going to close this now, and we're going to go behind the scenes to see what's happening on Redis. First thing I want to show you is the JSON document which is sent back. Now, JSON is the lingua franca of the internet. 80% of modern applications use JSON as data format, mainly because it's flexible, it's intuitive, it's used in the application layer, so it's very developer friendly. Now, Redis JSON supports store and query rich nested JSON documents. It also supports atomic operations on this nested documents, so you don't have to load processes in the application layer and reload things again. Let's look at what the search query really did. So FT search is powered really is by Redis search, and Redis search is our secondary index and full text search engine for hashes. And as Yiftach and Peter just announced, it also supports JSON documents now. This means that you can run exact text, fuzzy search, prefix phonetic stemming, and a bunch of other full text search functions using this one unified API that's purpose built for performance. In fact, it also rapidly indexes frequently changing data sets, so you never have to return back stale data. Below that is the FT aggregate command, which allows you to run simple analytics. And in this case, you're actually constructing those filters dynamically from that aggregation of all the items coming back thanks to that search. So Redis JSON and with Redis search is really a game changer. It brings millisecond latencies, even during seasonal peaks like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Now I'm going to find what I'm looking for finally. So here is here's a Safari. We just got back from Safari. My kid's into wildlife. This will be interesting for him to watch. I'm going to add it to the cart. I'm also going to look for headphones so I can work while we're watching the movie. I'm going to highly rated headphones, a little bit more higher end. This black one looks great. I'm going to add it to my cart. I'm going to check it out. Now you can see this local pickup. So Redis Smart supports buying online and picking up curbside or at the store. And this lookup is powered by Redis Search. In fact, you can use Redis Search not just for searching by text or numeric filters, but also do geospatial searches so you can find the stores closest to you. So that's because of Redis Search. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit before I place the order, because I want to talk to you a little bit about how Redis Smart was deployed and give you a retailer's point of view. So Redis Smart is deployed across 3 different geographical areas. One is in US Central on Google Cloud. The other one is on US East on AWS. And the last one is on Azure in Northern Europe. I'm actually opened the inventory page for Redis for the Azure location, because I want to show you how you can how data is being synchronized using active technology. So let's go and split screen this, and I'm going to pull it up, and I want you to keep an eye on the amount on this speakers which are in of these headphones which were in my shopping cart. And as soon as I place the order, you can see that amount got reduced in stock from 65 to 64. Now that happened almost instantaneously. These 2 data centers with the application and the database are almost 5,000 miles apart. So Active allowed you to synchronize data across different geographical areas, but also across different cloud providers. Now you may be wondering, hey, what's it seems like a small feature. Actually, this is quite a big deal. This enables retailers to implement real-time inventory management, so they can get more accurate view of their inventory or avoid stockouts. You can do inventory optimization, so they can actually fulfill orders from nearby stores. This was not possible before because their existing backend systems are not really built for the real-time era, and they're slow, and all processing happens in a batch process. Well, this wraps up my demo. I want to just summarize by saying that Redis JSON with Redis Search can help you build real-time applications, power real-time search, and get real results. All right, back to you, Yiftach. Thanks so much. Bye.
Very impressive, Hash. Thank you. Now let's assume that you want to enrich your application with some AI capabilities. And in the context of an e-commerce application like Redis Smart, you want to add a visual search, the number one desired feature by e-commerce customers. Normally, this would require introducing an all-new technology stack. But it turned out you can do it with Redis too, and maintain the real-time experience we are aiming for. Before getting to all the details, what is running behind the scene, let's first get back to Ash to show us that this can actually work in real application. Ash, please.
Thanks, Yiftach. Well, we're back for one more thing. It'll be quick. I'm going to show you how visual search works on Redis Smart. So I'm going to click the camera button. It'll open up the webcam on my computer, and I'm going to try to look for these headphones. So I'm going to scroll up and click capture. Well, you can see the similarity search returned back 4 results. In fact, the first one is actually a headphone similar to mine. So it's done a good job of identifying my headphone and finding similar ones in the product catalog. The other one's also not bad. They have similar contours at the headphone. So now back to Yiftach to explain how Redis AI works and how it seamlessly integrates into your Redis technology stack. So back to you, Yiftach.
Thanks again, Ash. So how does visual search works? In essence, it's powered by a few technologies. These include Redis JSON and Redis Search, which we have already mentioned today. But in addition, there is Redis Gears, our server-side execution framework or programmability engine, and Redis AI, which brings real-time inferencing to Redis. Here is how it works. Every image is translated to a vector. These vectors are stored in JSON and indexed by Redis Search. Under the hood in Redis, the client calls Redis Gears functions with a reference to an image. Gear passes the image to Redis AI, which translates it to a vector. Gears then call Redis Search with the image vector. Redis Search performs a similarity search and returns the URL for the images that are nearby in the vector space. Let's take a closer look how long it takes to execute this flow. The inferencing phase, in which Redis AI translates an image to a vector, takes around 300 microseconds. Our vector similarity search algorithms works in a near constant time of no more than 500 microseconds, even with a collection of millions of images. And finally, the Gears functions overhead is around just 100 microseconds. This brings us to a total processing time of 900 microseconds, so we are still under the millisecond. And this is how powerful Redis is for real-time AI use cases. Even after adding some non-trivial AI functionality to the stack, the processing time didn't go beyond a single millisecond. But before talking about what else you can do with Redis for real-time AI, one of the things we learned by analyzing many of our customers' use cases throughout the years, and as nicely illustrated by this example, is the importance of programmability options for Redis users. So today, we would like to introduce Redis Function, a new concept and capability that we plan to add to Redis 7. To talk more about Redis Functions, I would like to welcome Yossi Gottlieb, one of our Redis open source project leads. Yossi, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Yiftach. So I want to start by looking at the different programmability options that Redis offers today. most people are familiar with Lua scripts. They're really the simplest and the easiest way to program Redis. They involve applications sending Lua code to the server to execute on the server side. That code executes atomically, and also saves the network round trip, so it can serve as a way to optimize certain operations. But conceptually, Lua scripts are really part of the application. They are not managed as individual entities on the server, so they don't extend Redis. If we want to extend Redis, then our best option is modules, which are really very, very powerful, but they are also pretty complex and may involve a pretty steep learning curve for many developers. So in between, we see the Redis Gears module, which is not part of the Redis open source core itself, but part of the greater ecosystem. It was created to address specific data integration scenarios, but it does offer a way to extend Redis in a rather simple way. And when we discuss this with users and users in the community, we realized that it would be very useful for the Redis core itself to adopt some of these capabilities. And so we started to sketch different solutions and prototype them, and we got eventually to the definition of Redis functions. So Redis functions basically have two main characteristics to them. One is that they are managed by the server. They are once you create a function, it gets persisted on the server. It gets replicated to replicas. It is named, and your clients can call it and access it by name. The other aspect of a function is that they are built on the concept of execution engine. So we basically separate the concept of loading code into Redis from the specific details of what engine is used to run that code. So that code could be Lua script, could be Lua if we want to turn Lua scripts into Redis functions, but it could also be something else now or in the future. Let's see how this works in action. So I will assume that my Redis is a backend database for some kind of an e-commerce site, and I'm going to manage my product catalog on Redis. So I have hash keys for my products with a description and all the metadata that describes the different products. And I will also use Redis to store my runtime shopping cart state. So for example, if I want to put some product in a cart, I will do something like h buy into my cart key, the product ID and the quantity, and then I can always fetch it, and that's really very simple. Then one day I may want to extend this with some additional logic. For example, I could want something like a max quantity property defined per product and enforced whenever that product is being placed in shopping carts. So, and of course this logic needs to be executed atomically, preferably on the server side. And the easiest way to do that would be to create some kind of a Lua script. Really pretty simple, that just gets the cart key and product key and an optional quantity that can default to 1. Get the product hash key, make sure that it exists, then look at the cart, fetch the current quantity of this product in the cart, compute or adjust the quantity based on the max quantity, modify the cart if necessary, and return the adjusted quantity. So that's really just a few lines of Lua code. It's very simple. I can run it with something like Redis --- eval, or use whatever script execution mechanism my Redis client library offers. And in this case, I will add to the existing cart, and I will use the existing product, and I will not specify the quantity, so it's 1. But at some point, I reach the max quantity, and then I see that it's not getting added anymore. The problem with this approach is that this Lua script is really part of my client application. So whenever I change it, I need to deploy it to my as part of my client application. And if my application spans a lot of different hosts, or maybe even implemented as different modules on different technology stacks, that can be much more difficult to manage, especially if my changes require some kind of, or involve some kind of backwards compatibility issues, the data structures change, etc. So if I want to turn this into a function instead, I can do something like a Redis CLI function create. I need to specify the execution engine for my function. That will be Lua, because this is Lua code. I need to name my function. I can optionally describe it. That could also be a more elaborate description, including what arguments it takes and return, what return value it is expected to return, etc. And then I will use -x and redirect for my cart add Lua, and I have a new Redis function created. And now I can call it function call, and the name of my function. But actually, I want to do something else. I want to show you the same function implemented as a different on top of a different execution engine. So I will, instead of calling it, I will do something like function delete cart add and get rid of my function. And instead, I will I've prepared in advance another implementation that is basically the same thing but in JavaScript, right? And I will do something like Redis CLI function. I can use this and just change Lua to JavaScript, and change the name of my file to card.add.js, and now I have a JavaScript function. And I can call it function call cart add. I need to let's pick. I need to specify the number of key arguments. And I will pick a new cart, and I will pick the same product, and I will add it, and I see that I get 1. And if I'm trying to use some kind of extremely high quantity, I see that it gets adjusted. And of course, if I try to use a non-existing product, then I get the JavaScript exception thrown and converted into a Redis protocol error. So that's what Redis functions are in a nutshell. And just to recap, so basically they enable us to load code into Redis. We unlike Lua, that code becomes part of the server. It is named, it is persisted and replicated, etc. And the actual execution engine is kept relatively decoupled, so we can have different functions being implemented using different development tools or different programming languages, and that could also be extended in the future. With that, Yiftach, I return to you.
Thank you, Yossi, and we are looking forward to hearing your feedback on the Redis function concept. Let's return to Redis and the real-time AI. Companies like Uber, Gojek, DoorDash, Netflix, Spotify, Airbnb, and many others have started to share their AI reference architectures. And at the heart of these architectures, there is one component that stands out: the feature store. Feature store have been motivated by the challenges of taking AI application to production, and were built as a bridge between your data and your machine learning models, to allow you to register, ingest, serve, and monitor features in production. There are two main components for every feature store. Data orchestration, where data scientists build, track, and share features for training and inferencing. This component helps, among several other capabilities, to improve the data quality. Data serving component is where the features are stored and served. An offline feature store is used for the training phase, while an online feature store is used for the production and the inferencing phase. Now you may ask yourself, this is all great stuff, but why this is related to Redis? We have recently found that in most of these AI reference architectures, Redis serves as an online feature store. Let's dive in and understand how Redis is being leveraged as an online feature store. Modules may have been trained with hundreds or thousands of features, but an online application, like a fraud detection example, may just receive a few of those features from the user interaction. In this fraud detection example, the user ID and merchant ID. The online feature store is used by the real-time application to look up for the missing feature. In the fraud detection case, this can be user history, the merchant history, the geolocation, and many others. And then build a feature vector and send it to the inferencing engine for predictions. There are several reasons why this architecture is still not perfect, but what can be seen very clearly is that it requires a lot of interaction between multiple components and eventually increases application latency. This is why we built Redis AI, to run the inferencing logic closer to where your AI features live, which simplifies the architecture and dramatically cut latencies. Furthermore, many of today's AI architecture are not only based on a single AI model with multiple features. Some applications use multiple models per application. For these use cases, you need to be able, first, to have a model store, and second, make sure that switching between models is done in a very fast manner, at the memory speed, so user can be served with the logic tailored for their specific need. So Redis as an online feature store now includes a feature store, a model store, and an AI inferencing engine. But we don't stop here. During the rest of the year, we plan to add the following capabilities to Redis to support the growing demands for an online feature store. Feature monitoring that will allow you to monitor which feature is used by whom and when. Drift monitoring will help you to improve the accuracy of your models. We will then add a sync mechanism or sync mechanisms from Redis to any popular offline feature stores and vice versa to maintain the consistency across features. We also plan to tighten the integration with Feast, an open source for feature store that already uses Redis for basic online feature store capability. We also plan to tighten the integration with commercial feature store providers. And remember, our primary motivation here is to help you to build AI-based application for the real-time era. And here is a reminder how an online feature store's performance based on Redis plus Redis AI looks like compared to using Redis with different type of inference engines, deployed far from where the features are stored. This combination of reduced latency and increased throughput allows Redis plus Redis AI to be an order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude faster. So let me summarize what we discussed in this keynote. Real-time is essential for every business these days, and Redis is what makes real-time possible. This is why over 66% of our customers rely on Redis as their main database, and why we decided to make Redis suitable for use cases where strong consistency is a requirement. Redis Raft is going to be GA this fall. Many of you are looking to build everything with Redis. We want to enable you doing so by making our JSON data type accessible through fast indexing, query, and search engine. The combination of JSON and search will be in preview next month. Furthermore, at the beginning of the second half of this year, you will be able to deploy and run Redis JSON and Redis Search database in a fully managed manner across multiple regions, cloud, and hybrid deployments, closer to where your users are, using active Redis. The combination of Redis Gears and Redis AIs allows you to almost do anything, any functionality to your application stack, without affecting the real-time experience of your users. And Visual Cert is just one example. Starting from the second quarter of this year, we are going to release Redis AI and Redis Gear in a gradual manner on Redis Enterprise Cloud, our fully managed cloud service. With the introduction of Redis functions, programmability in Redis is going to be easier than ever. Redis functions are going to be available as part of Redis 7 later this year. And finally, Redis as an online feature store combined with model store and Redis AI inferencing engine solves a lot of real-time problems of bringing AI application to production. We are going to be very active in this area, so stay tuned. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the session. And please remember, RedisConf is a great place to learn more from other Redis community members, how they use Redis to build, deploy, and run real-time services and applications. Next, I would like to welcome Mike Anand, our VP Marketing, to the stage to moderate the next session of the keynote. Mike, please.
Thank you, Yiftach and team. It's amazing to see how Redis is powering age of real time and expanding into so many use cases, delivering real-time experience. We believe today's announcement of allowing you to build more now with the powerful combination of JSON and search will accelerate your application modernization initiatives, deliver your microservices architectures, or help offload your legacy apps. But building real-time apps is just the beginning. We're working hard to make sure that they can be deployed and run at peak performance anywhere with active Redis Enterprise. Now, let's turn the chapter. You've heard a lot from us today, and I think it's important for you to consider how the aforementioned is coming into play in one of the most demanding environments in the world. Banks are facing major forces reshaping their industry with fintech disruptors, cryptocurrencies, and new regulations. With all that change happening, along with sweeping shifts in customer behaviors and expectations, a new approach is needed to help build for today and tomorrow's needs. I'd like to welcome Mike Lee, the Head of Payments Architecture at Capital One. Capital One is one of the banks that really stands out in leading the charge in turning its technology stack into a powerful business differentiator. Mike will take us through his journey, building the bank's payment systems architecture powered by Redis Enterprise. Mike, please.
Hi, and welcome. My name is Mike Lee. I am Head of Payments Architecture for Capital One. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about our next generation payment platform. I joined Capital One about 10 years ago in 2011 as an enterprise architect. And I've been focused on payments the last 3 years or so. So a little bit about Capital One. Capital One is a financial services company. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of it or seen some of the advertisements. But we've got a couple major divisions. So our consumer division, which is your bank accounts, you've got credit cards, what's in your wallet, and then our commercial line of business, which is your business to business types of functions. So commercial loans and stuff of that sort. Some things that you may not know about Capital One from a tech perspective is we've got, we're 100% in the cloud. So we operate in the cloud, and then we're also a fairly big open source contributor. So we contribute to GitHub. We have about 36 repositories out there. We also have some major ones, which would be like our Critical Stack. So that's a security management tool for Kubernetes. We've got Cloud Custodian, which is a way to manage your infrastructure in the cloud. And then Hygieia, which is a near real-time DevOps pipeline management tool. And so from a payments perspective, we've got, we're the 5th largest payment processor by volume, which means we process about 1.5 billion payments per year. If you look at that linearly over the times in which we're operating, that comes out to about 250 payments per second. So obviously there's peaks and valleys in that, but nonetheless, it's a pretty steady stream all year of payments. So today we're looking at the payment landscape, and the payment landscape has been changing. And so in a Morgan Stanley study, the segments of millennials and Gen Z show that they are more than any time in history embracing mobile banking. And so that's really a change, a paradigm shift in how we do banking and the things that we focus on. They're very focused on customer experience. And what that means is the instant moving of money. They want to see their money go from, just like an email, from one place to the other. And why not be able to do that instantly, especially as we move away from fiat-based money. In response to that, in 2017, we saw the launch of Zelle. And so a bunch of banks came together as a conglomerate, launched a network called Zelle. And so Zelle supports something called payment to payment. So that's your P2P. And so you can be able to send from a bank account to an email address or phone number. In response to that, in 2018, we had the clearinghouse, and they launched RTP. RTP is real-time payments, and that's being able to send from one account to another account in real time. And then as a response to the real-time trend that's moving, we've got things like FedNow, which is coming in 2023. And so that's Fed's version of real-time payments. So in a 2017 KPMG report, they had said that there's 57% of disruptions will be coming from fintechs. And so surprisingly, in 2018, we saw the OCC, which said that banks can start getting fintechs can start getting bank charters. And so what that means is fintechs are able to do the money movement, the clearing, the settlement against the Fed, just like a bank would. However, there's a lot of barriers to entry still, which keep fintechs and banks apart. And so those barriers to entry have to do with regulation and things like Basel II holdings and a whole bunch of other regulatory constraints. So I think probably the biggest thing that we've seen in mobile payments and the uptick in payments and the digitalization of banking really comes because of the pandemic. So with COVID-19, what we've seen is a 35% increase across the banking footprint of people getting digital of their digital footprint. And so that's been a real driver of how you move your money and more to the effect of moving your money from place to place in real time. I think lastly is worth a mention is cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies are kind of coming to their own. We've seen Visa settle some transactions just recently on their network against cryptocurrencies. And some of the use cases we've seen are like cross-border payments, keeping that stuff out of the banks, and then also as a wealth store. People are calling it very similar to gold or silver, although the volatility is still there. So in response to all that, we really wanted to rethink our needs around payments and how we support these changes that have been coming down the pipe to us. And so we decided to look at our capabilities and say, hey, how do we go about this with a capability view, and take those capabilities to say what's reusable, what's not, what's specific to the rail. That capability view has helped us drive towards a platform, towards a banking hub. And so when we said, how are we going to create this microservice architecture, we also looked at it from the perspective of we have streaming available. Streaming supports millions of transactions per second, which makes it a very good message bus for us. And so we've implemented that message bus in the back end of everything that we do. It gives us a way to look at the sensitivity of data and to say, that what data is coming through the pipeline at any given time. It also allows us to ensure item potency. We don't want to debit or credit your account more than once, and drive those real-time metrics for observability. So when we look at the kind of the pizza delivery model, we can see exactly where that payment is in the value stream at any given point in time. Lastly, we want it to be performant, highly available, and fault tolerant. And so when we talk about these things, Redis Enterprise has helped us get there, amongst other different data stores. And so, with that, we want the system to be able to run cross-region, cross-cloud, and really to support the 24/7 need for payment and money movement. So we built this banking platform, and just to talk a little bit about platforms, it's not necessarily the tech piece of it that we're so concerned with a platform, although that's a pretty large piece of it. But payment platforms, you've got things like producers and consumers, and so those producers and consumers work off of each other to create reciprocal value. So the more producers have apps to create against the providers, the more the consumers use those different apps and use those different data perspectives out of the platform, which kind of drive the next iteration of applications. So it creates this ecosystem and network effects outside of the platform. We've got providers, and with providers, you're able to reach out to different parts of the organization or even outside of the organization for things that you need to enrich that data and to make sure that those payments go through smoothly. We have a way to initiate payments pretty much ubiquitously across our footprint. We're able to configure those cross-payment workflows. We can start to look at fraud, how people move money across the different networks. We've got routing decisions. So can we route on least cost, or can we route on fastest to get there? So we can start to look in different perspectives at that. It allows us, with the abstraction layer, it allows us to be a first mover on new emerging payment instruments. So as either producers or consumers or even networks come online, we're able to plug them in fairly easily with a very fast timeline and turnaround in order to get them up and sending payments through the system. And so a little bit about the architecture. So the architecture, we've got interaction through those real-time interfaces. So our APIs and our message brokers, that's really our producers and consumers. We've got sidecar observers. And so the sidecar observers in that pattern sort of sit off to the side and they watch the payments coming through and take action on those payments. So we can do things like automated replay or stop payments when they need to be stopped based on some of the criteria that are coming through. We've got brokerage services. So those are those you reach out to the external systems and enrich that data. Our data stores are geared in NoSQL. It's a great way to capture data very fast and then queue it up for use as it's moving through, because it is unstructured. And we found that to be a really good advantage in leveraging. However, when your payments are complete, you really need to get them into an ACID compliant, item potent database. So we do use things like relational databases to eventually land the payments. And then we've got the integrations with our payment networks and our vendors. So you can either have a hosted piece of software that interacts with the network, or a lot of the time we have a hosted piece where we host it, but we're able to abstract on top of that to make sure that it's not built into the monolith. So looking back and reflecting on what we've built and where we've gone with this, I think that one of the biggest things is simplicity. What we found is as you start to build out the microservices architecture, it can get very conflated around the different methods and patterns in which you're using, and those often collide with each other. So sticking to that plan and keeping it very simple is probably the best thing that you could do. Another thing is, solving the multi-cloud, multi-region problem. It's a really tough problem. You want to keep things item potent, but you still want to process things in a highly available master kind of scenario. And so we're actually experimenting a little bit with Redis Raft around that to do the Raft algorithm and lock those transactions depending on where they're happening. And then as far as your culture and mission, to support that change. And so you really need to build that into how you're building it. It really does start with people and how those people are engaged with building the new platform. So I thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone has in store at RedisConf 2021.
Thanks, Mike. It's inspiring to see how a financial institution truly leading with technology and taking a platform approach to building for the future. The notion of real-time is a leading factor in payments world today, and it's also expanding into areas like fraud detection and payment traceability. All of these use cases heavily rely on real-time data layer and microservices and cloud architecture supported by Redis Enterprise. And by the way, Mike is also giving a full technical breakout session here at RedisConf. And you should check out how Redis Enterprise powers key portion of their leading edge architecture. Speaking of diving in, Itamar Haber and Yossi Gottlieb, two of the Redis open source core team member, will host Redis 6.2 and 7.0 breakout sessions, in which you will hear more about Redis Raft and Redis Functions capabilities. The newly announced release of Redis JSON and Redis Search is much faster than any other document database in the market. It opens the door to the new class of real-time user experiences in almost any vertical: retail, finance, healthcare, and many others. You can learn more about the powerful JSON plus search combination in the breakout session by Peter Kayut. Now, switching gears, it's time to continue Keynote and unwind together at theCUBE studio, where we'll get the stories and analysis behind today's news in a fireside chat with some of our keynote speakers. I'd like to welcome our host, John Furrier. John, please take it away.
Hello and welcome to the RedisConf 2021 post-fireside live chat. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We have three great guests lined up to share their reaction to the keynotes. Ofer Bengal, Mike Lee, and Matt Essay to weigh in. First up, Ofer Bengal, co-founder and CEO of Redis Labs, here for the fireside chat. Good to see you. It's been a while. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, John. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
I interviewed you in 2013, and now you have all the funding and the success and a great product. Congratulations.
Yeah, you were one of the first to acknowledge us, so thanks for that.
So I love your comment about why should people put up with slow databases and have it all here in real time. Tell us more about that slogan, the age of real time.
Sure. So first of all, real-time data is here and is real. And the demand for real-time data is growing actually every day. And this is because we all live in the fast lane nowadays. And since data is the core of everything, it must be processed and served in real time. And this is very obvious when looking at customer-facing apps. Instant response is mandatory because the new generation of users, they don't have the patience to wait. They would like to click and get it, tap their phones and get it, and if they don't get it immediately, they move on. Now, the main bottleneck in end-to-end application performance and the thing that can kill user experience is the database response time. Databases are slow, and even the modern ones respond in anywhere between 10 to 100 milliseconds on average, which cannot guarantee a reasonable user experience. So therefore, all of them are using this caching layer, which is basically duplicating the data most on demand into memory. Now, Redis started as a very popular caching system, and Redis is still popular in this use case, but during our 10 years journey, enterprises have realized that instead of keeping, as I said, side by side a slow database and a caching layer to speed it up, they can leverage Redis and especially Redis Enterprise and enjoy 10 to 100x performance advantage over any other product.
I see no reason why people should put up with slow databases. So good point. I have to ask you a question.
And there are many other, just to complete this point, there are many other use cases. So if you look at, use cases like real-time predictions, decision-making engines for ads bidding, ad serving, et cetera, I can, mention many of those. They all must respond instantaneously. So the era of real-time applications and real-time data has definitely started. And I think that it is here to stay.
What about all the different database types out there? There isn't one to rule the world. You have real-time needs, time series, graph, JSON. These are, and this is diverse databases. Can you support the speed for everything?
So, there are a few flavors here. Some vendors, such as some of the cloud providers, support what we call polyglot persistence, whereby they offer a different separate database for any data model. We thought that although it can work, maybe a single database that supports all the most popular data models can work better, especially if you need the performance. And this is why over time we close all those gaps, and today we support most modern data modeling technologies with Redis, and they all enjoy the speed and simplicity of Redis.
You started Redis 10 years ago with the open source ethos. It's been very successful. Do you think that the business model has proven itself over time? What's your reaction to that?
So in general, the benefits of building an open source company is faster market adoption and market traction, obviously. Developers get to know the code and become comfortable with it much quicker than in the case of closed source, and they can embed it in their designs much earlier. However, if this open source becomes very popular, there is a risk that the creators won't be able to maximize their investment commercially due to competition by commercial providers of the open source. And we all know of several open source companies that were forced to move away from open source license to a closed license in order to avoid unfair competition for companies that just piggybacked on their open source without contributing to it. So this business model proved itself for some companies and failed for others. I'm happy to say that in the case of Redis, it definitely proved itself.
What are you most proud of over the past 10 years? If you look back and look at the successes and the effort, the people, the accomplishments, the code, what are you most proud of?
So I'm mostly proud of building an A team of super talented people that develop open source Redis, and Redis Enterprise, which is our commercial offering, in parallel. I'm also very proud of the Redis community and Redis fans that continue to be enthusiastic about Redis, continue to contribute to Redis, and continue to include Redis in their apps, even 12 years after this all started. And I'm very proud of all the visionaries that understood 10 to 15 years ago that real-time data will play a central role in the tech world. And first and foremost, Salvatore Sanfilippo, the creator of Redis, and then the folks at Redis Labs, Yiftach Shoolman, Yossi Gottlieb, Oran Agra, and all other team leaders and tech experts in the company.
Just we are a customer of Redis. theCUBE uses it. We love it. It's real time is great. I got to ask you, with all the venture capital and money flowing into the market, it seems that everyone's jumping on data technologies with the venture, promising this or that. There's obviously demand for real time. You got edge, you got cloud and hybrid, all this new development, modern applications. The need for speed, the need for low latency, the need for multiple database support. What do you think the money is going to be used for? Do you think it's viable? What's your reaction to all the funding and all the entrepreneurship happening?
So first of all, I think that investors make the right choice by investing in these areas, because we all know that the amounts of data that businesses are accumulating today is unprecedented, and this cannot be managed with legacy databases. And in addition, digital transformation is changing the way apps are built, deployed, operated, etc. And data is at the core of all this. So the ability to quickly modernize application and augment how they use data is invaluable. Now, the database, as we know it, is evolving, and we see this with new data models, increased automation, extended operational capabilities, and also different levels of performance. In analytics, this is all about processing huge amounts of data. Any business needs to analyze its KPIs and take decisions. And also, when you look at the role of data in machine learning and artificial intelligence, where you build algorithms, models, etc. from data, and then you manage feature stores that run on data. So all this creates huge demand for new database, data platform technologies. And I think that this fuels the growing investments in the field. Now, yeah, please go on.
Go ahead. No, talk about the investments in the field. You're continuing.
So the question, of course, is, we raised like $100 million about 6-7 months ago, and we most recently raised another $110 million. And the question is, why do you need that money, and what are you going to do with this? So first of all, if you look at all successful enterprise software companies before their IPOs, so the common attribute is fast growth. And we have set aggressive growth goals for ourselves. And in order to achieve them, we have to spend. So our priorities in spending are, first of all, continuing the investments in open source Redis from a technology and community perspective. And this RedisConf is just one example of the type of investments that we are making in the Redis community. And then widening the competitive edge of Redis Enterprise by adding features and expanding the use case for developers. We would like to continue increasing what we call the beyond cache part of the business, and therefore we need to invest heavily in product capabilities which expand the use case coverage of Redis beyond caching. We also would like to invest more in our cloud business. We see many of our on-prem enterprise customers starting their migration journey to the cloud, and we want to continue providing them the same Redis experience they had on-prem, but with a fully managed and automated service on the cloud. And then another important area of focus would be machine learning and artificial intelligence. We found that many machine learning powered apps already use Redis to store machine learning features in online feature stores. And we think that this is a natural evolution for Redis. So we now push strongly towards making Redis and Redis Enterprise the de facto standard in this space. And finally, you always need to continue to grow your sales and marketing teams to reach, the massive opportunity ahead of us in global 2,000 companies. So all in all, we have very big plans, as you can imagine, and all towards the goal of making Redis the de facto data platform for any real-time use case.
So do you think Redis is so popular that it's going to be good for business or good for the community? And it's very popular. Is that a good or bad thing for Redis Labs?
So,
you got a lot of cash, so that's good.
The Redis open source project was started by Salvatore Sanfilippo in 2009. And in a relatively short time, it became very, very popular by word of mouth, basically, without any investment in promoting it. Now, how popular, by the way, just to give you the perspective, 6 million Redis containers are launched every day on Docker Hub alone. Now, such popularity, is definitely a blessing for anyone that wants to commercialize Redis. And the open source license of Redis is BSD, which is a very permissive license, meaning that anyone can adopt and modify the source code. So several companies, and especially the leading cloud providers, created at a very early stage fully managed Redis services based on open source Redis. And today they sell Redis to their clients for billions of dollars every year. Now we, as community leaders and the largest contributors to open source Redis, were able to build a successful business by expanding the capabilities of Redis beyond just caching. And we talked a little bit about that. So I think that the bottom line is that, popular open source, sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work so well. We were able to leverage the popularity of open source Redis and become successful with the commercial product based on it. But I must say that it wasn't easy and required a lot of work.
Ofer, it's been great to see you. I would say that when I interviewed you on theCUBE in 2013, you were just getting started. You were on that vision of data, real time, and what a great community. Congratulations for all your success.
Thanks much, John. Pleasure to talk to you.
Congratulations, and may you guys continue to make a great product. It's fantastic and developers love it. Who doesn't love low latency, high performance from modern applications? Ofer Bengal, co-founder and CEO of Redis Labs, here for the post-keynote fireside chat. And we got Mike Lee up next, head of enterprise payment architecture at Capital One. We're continuing the live action, and we're hoping everything goes well. We're going to continue to kind of bring this kind of coverage of Redis Labs, which is doing phenomenal work, and anyone who's programming knows the value of having Redis in their system. Mike, thanks for coming on the post-keynote conversation.
Hey, John, how are you?
Great to see you. Capital One, we've covered on theCUBE, certainly at reInvent and other areas. You guys are 100% cloud footprint, something other banks talk about or don't even dream about. Why this approach? I mean, what's the benefits? How do you see the business impact of Capital One's as you look at, head of payment architecture? It's a big deal. What's the impact?
I think that, us moving to the cloud offers us a lot of advantages with our cloud first strategy. It gives us speed and agility. And, I think that's probably the number one leading reason for being in the cloud. We're able to provision our footprint in minutes, so we can spin things up really quick. We can scale to meet our customer demand. We can right size applications. And I think that's really, a huge advantage. Some of the other things that the cloud allows us to do is we're able to measure and maintain our footprint with a pretty high degree of accuracy. So a lot of those costs are now out of the data centers and into the cloud, which is very easily measurable. So that allows us to get our head around our utilization, what that looks like, our cost projections, and ultimately our compliance. With things like security, when we talk about compliance, we're also able to shift those workloads. The cloud gives us a unique ability to do that. In that we can, stand up blue-green deployments, we can move our stuff, and then from a security perspective, apply all of our patches and upgrades and whatnot pretty seamlessly.
You guys are very active in the open source, which is, I see you guys at all the different events out there. You contribute, you use it. What's the angle on the open source? What's your take on the contribution, the benefits as it evolves? Obviously, tier one citizen, open source has become the table stakes now in many commercial organizations. Capital One, you guys got really high bar for support for to be a viable component of the production systems. Talk about the motivation of open source and just some of your experiences.
Sure. Moving away from from vendor only to the open source community, has kind of shifted developers, I think, from doing a lot of low value work to more high value work. A lot of that low value work can just be picked up and done by really anybody in the open source community, and the high value work is really where that gets resolved. What are the features that people are looking for, and how do we drive that? That footprint? It also offers us things like a lower total cost of ownership. When we're developing, large pieces of software, that software is constantly moving. So that's not, we have to stand up a whole big project around it and whatnot. It's always being developed. I think that's our main motivations. And it also offers us a couple things like advertising, right? I mean, you're able to get out there and say, hey, this is what we're doing here at Capital One. This is great stuff. It attracts great talent. And, and we can then take advantage of those force multipliers around that open source community.
Yeah, congratulations. I think it's a great leadership position, one, for you guys to take advantage of that, but also within the open source community, you're seeing a lot more end user contribution, participation. That, to me, this is a huge wave. It's going to get bigger and bigger, in my opinion. So great stuff. I got to ask you about the keynote. Real time obviously was the theme. Ofer was talking about the early days of Redis and how they started, and now the VC investments, a ton of money is coming in because of the relevance of real time and the role of data. This is a huge part of the conversation. Obviously, you guys know a lot about real time. I mean, real time, near real time, the definition always shifts, but in finance, you got to be as real time as possible. What's the impact of this Redis conversation that they're talking about to the businesses with the real time impact? What's your take on that? What's your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think real time, in a traditional sense, was really more focused around your real-time analytics. It showed you the data. And what we're trying to get into, and what I think the newer definition of real-time is it really kind of centers around the real-time execution of things. And so from a payments perspective, we're able to start queuing things up in a way where the networks are starting, when I say the networks, the rails are starting to support that real-time money movement. So you've got customer expectation, which is coming in and saying, hey, we want to see these, we want to see money moved immediately. And then how do we support all that sort of, that stuff? And so, Redis has helped us in leveraging that real-time data to make it available, transparent, and to all of our different systems simultaneously. So it really gives us that kind of business level parallel processing that we can do in order to get into that real-time execution part of the story.
That's awesome. I'd love to ask you one quick question while I got you here as we wrap up. What's next-gen payments mean to you? When you think about that, when you look at all the benefits coming from the goodness of open source and Redis, among other things, you're talking about next-gen, what we're talking about here. What's that mean to you?
Yeah, next gen to me is really about being able to have your money and move your money where and when you need it to. And I think that's, as the networks are maturing and we're starting to provide different things, you're seeing, Bitcoin, and you're seeing, things like FedNow and different ways to move money. That's the, that's I guess the impetus of it all. Where we're going with that next gen kind of conversation. I think it being fungible, as a bank, you have to respond to it being fungible. You have to respond to it being as real time and directed as possible. And then I think, where AI plugs into all of this, starts giving you kind of real time fraud analytics, how you can see that data, because that data is now exposed. You can do routing and other interesting things with having that data right in front of you instead of tied up in a vendor system or tied up in a network.
That's awesome. Final question for you. I think we've got a minute or two left. Cloud and OSS systems, balancing that pioneering of open source with some of the government governance and compliance issues and risk. quick thoughts on being a trailblazer and balancing that innovation with the basic business compliance stuff.
Yeah, with open source and balancing all that stuff, it is a balance. It is a balance. But I think some of the things that we are able to do is like real-time scanning of our data to make sure that we're following the right software licensing agreements, making sure that we're supporting all the best practices, taking care of code flaws and vulnerabilities, because these things are obviously going to seep into your systems. And ultimately, as it comes to fruition and we start to build those data pipelines fit right into our DevOps flow. And so within that DevOps, we're able to more real time analyze the code, not only in the repositories but as it's being deployed.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are great. Love following your work at Capital One. Congratulations, and thanks for coming on and sharing here on the Keynote post live coverage.
Awesome.
CUBE Redis Labs coverage. Thanks for coming on, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. Take care.
Okay, I'm John Furrier with theCUBE. We got another guest, but Capital One is just such an innovator. We've talked with them on theCUBE. We've listened to them talk at reInvent and trade shows around the industry, around cloud native, and a great use case of pushing the envelope with DevOps in a big commercial way. Speaking of AWS, Matt AC, Head of Open Source Strategy and Developer Marketing at AWS, Amazon Web Services, friend of theCUBE. We've known Matt for many years, over a decade, following the data developer world. Matt AC, welcome to the Redis post-keynote coverage.
Thanks, John. Actually, I was thinking about it. I remember having dinner with you in Palo Alto many years ago. Must have been 15 plus, which means we're both old.
Yeah, well, we've seen the movie before, but we've seen this wave. I remember early on when we were talking, I believe it was early on around the Hadoop movement, big data. Right. We saw this, and Ofer calls it real time. We're calling it fast data, not necessarily big data, big and fast, and then data lakes came along. You've seen this evolution, so I want to get your perspective here on the Redis keynote. What's your take on their speed angle? Because you can't deny what Ofer Bengal was saying. It's like, why do you want to wait for a slow database? Why are you supplementing this for slow? Just make it fast. Kind of makes sense. What's your take?
Yeah, I 100% agree with him. And if you think about it from either the consumer's perspective or the developer's perspective, if you have a choice, why would you ever choose to get your data in batch? Why would you ever choose, if I'm a consumer, why would I ever not want to have music's recommendations served up to me in real time that might keep me listening? Why would I ever want those things? I was thinking about specific to Redis and something that I think it does amazingly well. And it's been popular for years because of the performance. And I think because mistakenly we thought of it as a cache. You can use Redis for caching, but it's much more than that. Has time series data, it has messaging and queuing capabilities, has all these things. And which sounds a lot like a database because it is. If I'm a developer building, let's say, an omni-channel retail experience, and I've got somebody looking on their phone, browsing, they want to order on their laptop, they want to order online and then go make exchanges in person. On the back end, there's a lot of magic that has to happen there for real-time inventory and serving up an experience as to what I see and what I'm shopping for. Redis, because of its lightning performance, is perfect for that sort of thing. And yes, you can use it as a cache, and that comes in, but it's more than that. And again, if I'm a developer and I have the option of serving up an experience in real time for my customer, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and also you have an architectural shift. We've been talking about this in the cloud migration as enterprise comes in with hybrid, multi-cloud, and other things. You're starting to see different databases. And I've even talked to Andy Jassy at AWS about this around, there isn't one database to rule the world. There's different formats. You mentioned time series, you got graph, you got now JSON, you need to search. All these things are happening. It's all one big platform now. So how does you see Redis succeeding in that with these new announcements? And then how this cloud kind of goes to the next level. When you got this operating model, DevSecOps, however you call it, day two operates, all is going crazy. How does these new database diversity factor into all this? Is it just more data? What do you see Redis doing in that area?
Well, I mean, personally, I see Redis taking on more and more again, started as a cache. And I see it taking on more and more attributes of what you'd consider to be a full-fledged database. What I don't think, and to your point, what I don't think is good for Redis or for any other database, we tend to think of like general purpose databases, and that's fine so far as it goes, but Redis is remarkably easy to use, accessible for a developer, performance is off the charts. I think as Redis Labs and others who help to develop it, we focus on not just turning it into something that's good for everything, but something that's really good for particular things. And like you said, we have multiple databases that we can use and choose. And at AWS, we talk about purpose-built databases. And so you might use a graph database where relationships in the data are super important. And you might use Redis for where you need to give that real-time sort of perspective on the data, whether it's for analytics or for other things. But I think it's important Redis will continue to take shape, a broader and broader shape, being able to do more and more different things. And developers will start using it or are using it for an increasing array of applications. But I think what we don't want, at least not right now, is to cast it or any other database as the everything database, because we saw that with Oracle, and it's kind of collapsing under its own weight.
Well, and plus, as modern apps become programmable with the infrastructure as code, you're going to need to have the infrastructure just do its job. So I got to ask, as Amazon enables this, even theCUBE uses Redis, and we have a big Amazon deployment for our media. So small to big companies are using Redis. I'm an Amazon customer as well, so you guys have a lot of Redis customers on AWS. You're a major stakeholder in all this. How do you see that expanding? Because Redis is so popular. Is it a choice issue? You guys going to continue to support it? How do you guys as a stakeholder view the phenomenon that's super popular?
Yeah, well, and when I say we, one of the wonderful things about open source is that it's really always about the individual. And so I say we, but what I really mean is Madeline Olson, an engineer at AWS, decided a few years ago and got permission from her boss to start actively contributing to Redis. And I think that's emblematic of what we want to see happen. And now we have a number of people that are actively contributing to Redis. One thing that I love about Redis Labs, so stepping back from the database for a second and looking at the leadership around it, Redis Labs showed, I think, remarkable leadership in deciding to open up the development and the governance around the Redis database. And what that has meant, it started off as Salvatore Sanfilippo doing an amazing job of building it himself. But now you have the kind of the muscle of a range of different companies, and in the core maintainers, it's now Redis Labs, AWS, and Alibaba. But the kind of the community building up around Redis is even more diverse than that. And I think it's really for the community to decide what Redis becomes. And given the diversity of perspectives and diversity of talents that are now feeding into Redis, I don't know. That's why kind of when I was saying before, it's not just a cache, it's kind of whatever the developers who are the contributors to Redis want it to be. And sky's the limit.
Yeah, Redis is super popular. I got to ask, obviously this comes up a lot, and I want you to, if you don't mind addressing it here at the Redis Labs Conf 2021, as a major cloud providers get into the scale game, and then you got now the customers going the enterprise with hybrid. How do you guys help open source companies like Redis Labs succeed while at the same time offering your own version of Redis? Because we get why this all is. It's all open, but Redis Labs, again, they're very successful. Just raised a big round of funding again. They're a unicorn. They're worth $2 billion, and they have a huge ecosystem. So what's your view on how the cloud providers can help them be successful?
Yeah, well, I mean, so think of it this way. If you've heard, and I know, John, you know AWS really well, and you've been friends with Andy Jassy for years, so this won't be a surprise to you. But for the benefit of others that may be listening, so there's one team, one product team at AWS that competes with Redis Labs around Redis, and that's the Elasticache team. But if we have 200 plus services, and we do, and that means there's at least 199 of those other product teams that desperately, actively want Redis Labs to succeed because we partner with Redis Labs. And so that's the EC2 team and S3 and all these others, our field team. So as long as we take customer obsession as the first priority, and it is at AWS, then answering that question becomes really easy because, I mean, honestly, is AWS, we hope that we will be a great solution for customers most of the time around Redis. And we're doing a lot of innovation and innovative work to make that happen. But no company is ever going to be the only solution every single time forever and ever for a particular use case or a workload. And so we need to partner with companies like Redis Labs to ensure that they're successful because they're going to see ways to serve the customer that maybe we haven't yet. And so it really helps us to serve our customers by working well with companies like Redis Labs. And in particular with Redis Labs, a lot of my time, my personal time, well, my work time, is spent trying to enable them to be as successful as possible because their customers, if they're building on AWS and running Redis Enterprise on AWS, they're our customers too, and we want to make them successful.
Contributing in open source is a great angle to do it. You can also let them have the playing field. And I've heard it mentioned many times is that sometimes Amazon customers want to buy kind of things because of contracts, but Andy's always like, hey, they're a customer. Snowflake competes with Redshift, right? So, you know, I mean, so there's a lot of co-opetition. I think there's a lot of incentives. That's interesting, good perspective. Matt, final question, just as Redis Labs continues to go to the next level. 10 years ago, the founder was all bullish. I interviewed him in 2013 at conference before they changed their name to Redis Labs. You saw the vision playing out. How do you connect the dots as you're out talking to the open source community as the next wave of open source comes? It's here and it's more commercial, it's still open and transparent. What's your industry perspective on this as we go to the next level, this modern era, as we call it?
Well, it feels to me like the Redis community is doing the right thing by opening up governance and embracing diverse perspectives. It also feels to me like Redis Labs is doing the right thing. They were the ones behind that move to open up governance. And as I look at the sorts of things that they're doing, working well with us as well as other cloud providers, I'm super bullish on what the company is doing and what the open source project Redis is doing. I just think, 10 years from now, we're still going to be talking about Redis, and it probably will be even more popular than it is today, which is saying something because it's extraordinarily popular.
Matt, thank you for coming on theCUBE. Great to see you again, and I wish we were in person. Great stuff, always good to hear. I'm John Furrier with RedisConf 2021, fireside chat, keynote review, post-reaction. Now we're going to toss it back to Mike and Nan, back to you.
Thank you, John. We really miss seeing all of you and each other, face to face, but there are many advantages that come along with making RedisConf virtual this year. First of all, on-demand content. There's 60 plus sessions to hear from community members, customers, and partners. The RedisConf platform will stay open for a whole month to allow you to binge watch or do so at your own pace. Thousands of you have signed up for our 4 new training courses, and many of you are already taking them and joining trainers in Discord room to get live assistance. We also have 9 discussions room to meet Redis experts. Be sure to take advantage of it. This year, our hackathon is bigger than ever, with total prizes of $100,000. We would love to see all of you hacking. And don't forget, you're virtually surrounded by thousands of Redis practitioners. Make the best out of it. Get in touch, trade tips, best practices, and extend your networks. Earn and learn a total of $25,000 in prizes offered to 500 people who are on top of the leaderboard. Let's get you quickly ready for tomorrow's keynote, where you'll hear about real-time data, apps, and experiences from our customers and partners. I've heard their stories, and we can't wait to share them with you. Redis is part of some of the most advanced technology stacks out there today, and we build them in close collaboration with our partners to offer you more choices to build for your real-time needs today and tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.